Hello everyone, welcome back to Pro Business Talk. My name is Svetlana and today we have special guest. His name is Dario. He's 22 and he already makes sales for $3 million.
$20 million in sales in e-commerce.
$20 million in sales e-commerce. So today we will have a very interesting podcast. So let's start with introduction. Dario, tell me please about yourself. I think the best introduction will be if you tell me.
Thank you, Svetlana, for having me. I'm Dario, 22 years old, Italian. Actually, I'm a high school dropout, a bit of a renegade. I left school when I was 17, and I began working in e-commerce, studying marketing, psychology, copywriting. And over the last 5 years, I worked on e-commerce companies in the US. And directly through the companies I built with my partners, we sold over $20 million in revenue of products online. And through the people that I help, my students, my friends, they probably made over 100 millions thanks to my advice. So even though I'm quite young and don't have that much of experience in the world, I think I know one thing or two about marketing. So we can share that with other people and see if what I say can be implemented in your business to help you scale your business, increase your customer acquisition, customer retention, lifetime value, and all the good stuff.
Amazing. Thank you, Dario. The question is very easy. What makes you different from other marketers?
Yeah, what makes me different from other marketers? Well, I think it's just the level of obsession that I have for the game. I spend over $60,000 on education, mastermind, coaching programs, groups, and I constantly read books, study courses. I'm going to pay my mentors now $50K. He's the best hypnotist in the world, and he's going to help me learn how to hypnotize people and do crazy stuff. And I think it all comes down to the understanding that I gained so far of what business actually is. Now, what business is, at the core of it, is just two things: brokerage of talent and arbitrage of information. So that means having a team of A players in place who are responsible, who you can delegate what's on your plate, and who can manage your company with you. Of course, as an entrepreneur, you gotta work in your company, you gotta be the one who sets the vision and the strategy. But it's essential in 2026 moving forward to have highly skilled people, and we can talk about how to select people to work with you. And the second thing is arbitrage of information, because the best company operate and make decision and base the strategy on the best information, whether that's market research, the best marketing, the best copywriting, the best ads. And then what I think set me apart is that I really studied deeply hypnosis, marketing, psychology. I read all the books on copywriting. I actually printed all the ads and video sales letter, and I used to read them for 6 months to a year. Before bed, 30 minutes, I would read these VSL scripts. So the actual script of the ad that generated hundreds of millions of dollars in sales, to imprint your subconscious mind the patterns, the structure that is able to take someone who doesn't know anything about you and is just, for example, scrolling Instagram. And how do you present to this person a story which resonates with their pain points, with their experience, and allow them to be in a state of trance and fall deeply into the story, see yourself in the story, and then by rewiring her belief, her paradigms, and by building your sales argument through the story. And that's very important. Every ad that we do is a story. Every video sales letter is done through a story, because stories are the best way to sell anything. It's the best way to convey a message. It's the best way to communicate to the subconscious mind. And we can talk about later how you can actually communicate to the subconscious mind and drop all the conscious filters of skepticism that most people have. You know, we live in a society where skepticism is at the highest level that's ever been. Think about when it comes to politics. Nobody trusts their politician. Divorce rate in the US is like 50%. People have been scammed even by banks in investment. You know, after 2008, Like all the trustworthy banks, the old good old saying, yeah, take it to the bank, implying that's the most secure thing. Now people don't trust anything, especially when it comes to claims about your product and your service, because people see 10,000 ads a day in between their social media, in between ads on the street, wallpapers. And so how do you distinguish yourself in this ocean of people trying to get your attention? And attention here is the key, is the currency of this third millennia. How do you get attention and how do you keep attention? Because before you're gonna sell something to someone, you gotta master getting their attention. And that is done through great copywriting and also understanding your customer on a deeper level than other marketers know them, but even deeply understanding your customer better than they know themselves. Because the most critical way in which you can entrust and instill trust with somebody is to explain to them their problems, their pain points, and their life experience better than they know it themselves, better they can tell it themselves consciously or unconsciously, right? So we do a lot of very in-depth avatar research on the people that we sell to, through AI mostly, like 100-page document with all the fears, desires, aspirations, pain points, what they think about when they lay in bed at 3 a.m., what worries them, what are their dream aspiration, where do they see themselves when they dream, when they daydream. And once we know everything about our customer, basically we tailor the stories that we present to them, which are stories where the sales argument is embedded, as social media ad that then take people to our website and allow them to buy.
So if I right understand, the difference between other marketers is that you implement psychology inside of advertisement, yes?
I mean, every marketer implements psychology, but I think what we do is on a deeper level. And by mastering storytelling, we're able to do, for example, 2 years ago, I scaled a skincare brand from 0 to over $10 million in sales. And we did that through video ads on Facebook and Instagram, which were 20 minutes long. So somebody was scrolling their feed and eventually our ad appeared. They didn't know it was 20 minutes long because Facebook doesn't show it to you.
I am right to understand right now you are talking about hypnosis in marketing, yes?
No, I'm talking in general about what we did. We can then go deeper into that. So 20-minute long video. And if you would say to someone, hey, watch this 20-minute long ad, he would say, what the fuck? I'm not going to do that, right? Because nobody wants to watch an ad. But that's the thing. We're not making ads. The key to advertising and persuasion in general is to conceal the sales message in a format that they are already familiar with, that embeds the sales message, which is not apparent that is a sales message already. So for example, we do ads in the form of a podcast like this, where there are two speakers talking, because we think, okay, what do these people consume organically on their own? They consume podcasts, they watch Netflix. Why does Netflix hold people for 12 hours long, binge watching a series, eyes glued on the screen? Because the stories in the TV shows and the movies create a compelling narrative that engages that part of the mind which likes to daydream, to imagine, and escape from reality. And if you use the same mechanism used by these huge companies, Netflix, and really what Netflix does is engaging different neurochemicals in the brain. They create addiction. And that's why you get addicted to content, social media, and all the other stuff. So what we do is we construct our sales argument to sell our product or services through stories. And stories are the most powerful way to communicate. You know, the greatest leader in the world led people, inspired people through stories. Simple example, think about Jesus Christ. Why do 2 billion people follow his teachings even after 2000 years, because his story was the most compelling story, the most relatable story, and that sparkled the most interest and inspired the most people. So if you can make somebody not just believe in your product, but believe in your mission, in your why. Simon Sinek says most companies have a what and a who, so what they sell and who they sell it to, but they're missing the why. What is the mission statement? What is the true purpose of the brand that you communicate through your story? Think about Apple. Apple created a cult-like following because it's not just selling a product, it's selling an identity. I'm an Apple user. I'm part of this group of people who are very technological. They're using the latest gadget device. They're on the edge of technology. And we go into Starbucks with our headphones and our MacBook and we work, right? So it's creating this identity that people would like to step into and acquire for themselves to be perceived by the other people, friends, families, other people in a certain way. Because at the core of it, what we do, the best persuasion in the world is assigning an identity to people. And you do that through stories, for example. Think about the Apple commercials. They're all like little stories, moments. But yeah, the thing about Apple and big companies is that you cannot really apply their type of marketing to your small to medium business because it's very institutional. They're a $1 trillion company. What they do doesn't apply to you. But what you should study is, for example, to learn persuasion, influence, and advertising, what I did was to go back 100 years and study who actually invented advertising. And advertising was invented in the 1920s when the owner of an ad agency in the US who's doing ad for big brands like cosmetic brands, etc., asked the question, what is advertising? And nobody had the answer. Back in the days, advertising was just creating a funny motto or like a few lines that would rhyme together, like musicals, something like that. There was no concept of advertising actually being salesmanship in print, which is the definition of advertising, salesmanship in print, which is multiplied salesmanship. Because a salesman can sell one-on-one. Advertising, what it does is to sell one to many, right? And so I studied the Claude Hopkins and then Gary Halbert, Eugene Schwartz, all the greatest advertisers of the last 100 years, because they laid down the groundwork and the fundamentals, and they understood human behavior and human psychology in a way that is still applicable now, just to different medias. Because back in the 1930s, the media was newspaper and radio, maybe just newspaper back then. And on newspaper, what they found is that how do you make a successful ad for a product on a newspaper? Well, what you do is you make your ad look like a newspaper article. So they would match the font and the layout and the structure and template of a newspaper article, for example, in the Wall Street Journal, to then promote their business service. And that way, just through the format of the ad, they would double, 10x the response rate, just because it goes back to the principle of concealing the sales message. Because all you care about in your ads, in your advertising, is consumption. Attention is a limited currency. Money is infinite. Money is infinite. They keep printing more. But what is limited is attention. And people who can gain and keep attention on themselves nowadays are the one with the most status. And with status comes power, and with power comes great responsibility, as Spider-Man said, right? Eventually, newspaper ads evolved into advertorials, which is hiding an ad within the same format of a newspaper article. And then with the coming of social media, actually then from advertorial, once TV became popular, we got into infomercial. What is an infomercial? It's just an ad concealed in the format of a TV show, right? Why? To increase consumption of the message. Because if I'm binging through channels and I land on this TV show with a host on a studio like this, talking to some other woman about this new skincare thing, I'm going to have much less resistance in accepting the sales message because it does not feel like I'm being sold to. People love to buy, but they don't like the feeling of being sold to. And that's why you need to conceal your sales message in a way that mirrors the format of the content that they are already organically consuming, Netflix, Reels, TikTok, Shorts, social media in general. And that's how you can increase the consumption of the ad. And then through great copywriting, great understanding of your audience, and applying all the psychology principles, you can get them to buy anything, basically.
Mm-hmm. So you don't need actually that I should ask a question.
No, I could go on for like an hour talking about this.
Yes, it's fine.
I don't need any input. Like maybe every 5 minutes I would stop and then you can just give me the direction, right? But yeah, I'm pretty much freestyling.
Yeah, because I'm just was very hypnotized. You mentioned already about hypnosis in marketing. Could you please tell me with more details an example about this?
Yeah, hypnosis is a very fascinating thing, which I discovered back 2 years ago when I was a young, insecure teenager who couldn't get a date with a woman, right? And so I went down the rabbit hole of finding advice and eventually landed on the dating gurus online until I found this guy. His name is Ross Jeffrey, and he's the father of modern seduction. Back in the 90s, he basically created the seduction movement through seminars all over the world, right? Mm-hmm. And he was the student of Milton Erickson, which is the father of hypnotherapy, right? And what Ross did is he applied the same language patterns and wording that Milton Erickson was using in for helping his patients through hypnosis to rewire their beliefs, overcome traumas, applied the same patterns and ways of thinking to dating. So how do you communicate in a way which engages the part of the mind that likes to daydream, fantasize, think about travel, think about funny things to do, right? And that helped me a lot in my path in understanding women, which are very hard to understand. And then I discovered that applying those same language patterns, hypnosis patterns to my ads, to my marketing, massively improved the results. So what is hypnosis actually? So every day, 90% of our time, we are acting on autopilot. Our subconscious mind take over because our brain is always trying to reduce the energy used for our everyday processes. You know, that's why we have habits. What is an habit? It's an autopilot response. You don't have to think about it, right? You just do something because your body is accustomed to do it. And that habit is embedded, imprinted into the subconscious mind, which is trying to reduce the energy expanded by the brain. So because our subconscious mind runs most of our life, even without us knowing, and just to give a brief introduction of like explanation of what the subconscious actually is, it's the part of the mind that controls the body. So if you think about your heart rate, your respiration, all your internal processes, subconscious mind controls all those stuff. And it's also the place where all your beliefs or your paradigms and the worldview that you have about how the world works is, because when you're born, basically your subconscious mind, which in religious term is also called the soul or the heart, is a blank piece of paper. And if you look at children, their eyes are wide open because they're trying to assimilate all the information from parents, from their experience, from their friends, to understand how the world works and to create a mental model of how the world works. So the subconscious is, basically what's crazy is the subconscious stops developing after 6-year-old. So a child at 6, all his beliefs and worldview are formed through what he has experienced up until 6 years old. And that's crazy. And most people who have traumas in life, who have limiting beliefs, maybe they procrastinate or they cannot achieve their goals, or they're finding it hard to having a deep relationship with somebody intimately. It's all caused from subconscious beliefs that were imprinted in the first 3 to 9 years of age, right? So if we know that the subconscious runs the whole show, then it becomes really important to understand how do we can actually communicate to the subconscious mind, right? So how do we do that? Well, with the subconscious mind, and on top of it, we have the conscious mind. The conscious mind is what we use to think about our daily tasks, our daily activities. But that's only the superficial part of the mind. So to engage with someone and to rewire their belief and to sell them on an identity that you're trying to assign them to, the identity of someone who experiences all the amazing benefits that your products deliver, your service deliver, to allow them to buy the product, you want them to be convinced, not just consciously, but also subconsciously. So how do you rewire those beliefs through your sales argument? Well, what Milton Erickson discovered, the father of hypnosis, are the following principles and techniques on how to communicate to the subconscious. First of all, you gotta engage a conversation with somebody in a way which allows them to enter the state of willing suspension of disbelief. That means, for example, have you ever watched a movie in a theater?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When you watch a movie in a movie theater, what you do is you consciously hallucinate away the theater to make yourself believe that what you're watching in the movie is real.
Mm-hmm.
And you see yourself in the movie. You have to see yourself in the story, and you have to make the story real in your mind to be able to appreciate and to enjoy it, right? So you hallucinate away the four walls and you're just present in the moment, and nothing can distract you. And sometimes when you watch a great movie or you listen to a great song, time flies by. Why? Because you're engaging in this process of willing suspension of disbelief, where all the world around you just disappears and you're fully focused on on the movie, the music, or an activity. When you go into a state of flow, you forget everything else and you're fully present, right? So how do we make somebody go into this state? That's the key. Because if we can get somebody's attention to be fully on us and to drop their conscious filters of skepticism, then we can communicate to the subconscious, right? How do we do it? Well, we can do it through stories, for example, because stories are the most powerful way of communication, as they bypass conscious resistance. If I tell you, for example, you should buy this product because I know you want to have less wrinkles on your face, right? You want to look eternally younger. So when you look in the mirror, you feel like your younger self is beyond the years. And if you don't feel like yourself again, if your confidence is slipping away, this is very direct, using the second person, you. And it creates a bit of resistance, right? Because maybe you don't identify with those things. Maybe some of these pain points and emotional frustration hit you, but maybe it's not everything relates to you. And if something doesn't relate to you, then we break rapport and you're not going to trust me. But if I present a story of somebody else, a woman, 40 years old, who he's looking at her old Facebook pictures. Facebook sometimes reminds you of like your pictures 3 years ago, 5 years ago. And she's looking at those pictures and she's thinking, well, I'm not that young, confident woman, which I was back then. And she realizes that she's not getting the attention from his husband that she used to get, for example, when they were on her honeymoon. And People on the street are not noticing her anymore. They're not complimenting her. She feels her best years are behind her. Through the story, your subconscious is going to be way more engaged. And through the suggestions that I embed in the story, I'm rewiring your subconscious, and I'm imprinting beliefs and different ideas, right? Because the key to persuasion is to never tell somebody what to do, but to allow them to arrive at the conclusion on their own. Because if I tell you somebody directly, like, do this, listen to this, watch this, you're going to filter that through your conscious filters of skepticism, right? But if I suggest you an idea, and then through your own internal process, you dwell upon that idea and you make that idea your own, as if you came up yourself with that idea, then it's your own idea. And you're going to fight for your own idea 100 times harder than for an idea that somebody has suggested to you. Because the moment that you make something yours, it's part of your identity, right? So that's the key to persuasion. To communicate in such a way which pass through the conscious resistance and make you perceive that what I'm suggesting is actually your own idea. And I'm not suggesting it's your own idea, right? What was the questions? How do you apply hypnosis in marketing? I went on a downfall.
Oh, it's interesting because actually we learned this, how to communicate with men.
Mm-hmm.
Like you need to... you need to make him think that it's his own idea.
Yeah. For example, how do you communicate with men? Like, if you want to get a new purse, how do you allow him to think that it's his own idea?
Yes.
Like, what do you do?
It's you just need to say like it will be good. Let's say if I need to go to not to buy something, if we need to go somewhere to travel, I just need to say it's good weather there. It will be nice for you if you will go to Madeira, let's say, or Maldives, and just to relax and think about potential work, etc. How you can earn more money, etc. And today is not so good weather here, but maybe in Maldives will be better weather. And if day per day tell him this, maybe after a couple of weeks, or maybe after 1 week, he will think, I have a great idea. I need to go to Maldives.
Yeah. You know something? What were you doing in there? Basically, you are creating a positive association, and you're creating a filter of positive emotions attached to the outcome that you want. Because, and that's something that children do very well naturally. For example, I don't know if you ever seen a children asking for a toy. They're the most extreme manipulators of all time. So maybe a young daughter sits on his father's laps and tells him, "Oh, Daddy, I love you so much," with those great wide eyes, with that smile on her face. And then Daddy resistance just melts away because she's creating this filter of love through which the entire conversation afterwards will be filtered through. So controlling the frame is the number one key to communication. So first she instilled the frame of love. Okay, you love me, but how much do you love me? Do you love me like 1 to 10? How much do you love me? I love you 10, baby. And that's another trick. If you give a measurement, so how much do you love me from 1 to 10? A measurement instantly makes that idea more concrete and less abstract in the subconscious mind because we measure things that we can touch. So that's another trick that is used in hypnosis, is to give measurements to feelings, is to give measurements to the commitment that somebody has. For example, on a sales call, you can say from 1 to 10, how much do you want to do this right now? And the guy says 7, 8. Why not 10? Okay, so giving measurements is a great way also to create commitment to whatever you're doing, selling. And then the young daughter would say, you know, I have this friend and they're all having this toy, and you know, I watched them play with this toy. That's really good, and I don't know if you can buy it for me. I mean, I'm your favorite daughter, right? And then after his resistance is basically melted away, he's probably gonna comply. So what she did is, first she controlled the frame. So she controlled the filters through which the conversation was flowing through. Because basically the way we experience the word, everyone has their own different experience of the word. And we have our worldview and we experience the word in different ways. And what controls our experience is the lenses, the frame that is in front of our eyes, and the emotional filters through which we experience reality. Because if I'm sad, I'm gonna experience my day and I will only notice sad things that I see around me. If I'm extremely happy and inspired and confident, everything will be positive and I will experience reality in a positive manner. So controlling the frame and the filter is the most critical thing. And then what Milton Erickson discovered, the father of modern hypnosis, is how do you communicate to the subconscious? The number one technique that he uses, for example, with his patients, is confusion. Imagine I tell you something which you don't have an answer for. And in marketing, that's called an open loop. Let's say you're scrolling Instagram and suddenly an ad pops up on your feed which says, is this new wrinkle solution better than Botox? You're going to be hooked, right? Because you're interested in keeping a young looking face, etc., etc. Creates an open loop, which is an open-ended question to which the subconscious mind doesn't have an answer. So once that loop is created, that pattern interrupt, then the subconscious will be wide awake, way more attentive, and the conscious resistance will drop, and he will try to look for the solution, for the answer to that. Because the subconscious mind is always trying to figure out patterns and understand everything around him. So that's an open loop, a hook that you put in front of your eyes. It can be like a 3 to 5 second long question or sentence. And the moment that it's hooked, until I answer that question, I'm going to keep your attention for a long time just because there is an unanswered question within your mind. So, simple trick, have open-ended question in your video, in your ads, that hook people in and hook the subconscious. And that's the principle of confusion. Another thing, let me use a metaphor to explain the concept of confusion. Let's say I say a confusing statement. Let's say I say a confusing statement like, if you're looking for the changes that are looking for you, you should pay attention now and really focus. So what did I do? So if I said a specific confusion pattern, if you're looking for the changes that are looking for you, which is a very weird sentence, which doesn't make much sense, but it triggers the subconscious because basically the subconscious has to dissociate himself to imagine the changes that I'm looking for that are then personalized as a person, and then those changes are looking for me. What the fuck does that mean? And then what I do afterwards, once the subconscious is confused, is I embed a command, a suggestion, which then goes way deeper into the subconscious mind. And because the subconscious is wide open, it will be accepted more easily, right? So it can be explained as, imagine I do a confusion statement, you don't have an answer for it, or like you're triggered, right? And it's as if you're falling from a cliff. And then the suggestion or the command that I give you afterward is like me handing you over my hand to save you from the fall. And you're gonna grab on that hand with all your energy. And the moment that you then imprint a suggestion, a command, it goes way deeper. What is a suggestion or a command in hypnosis? It's just a command, for example. It's telling them what to feel, what to do, or what to think. Like, do this, watch this, listen to this, pay attention, be focused, watch until the very end. A suggestion, on the other end, is assigning a state. For example, I don't know if you feel ready now. Feel ready now, in this case, is a command. And I said, I don't know, which is a false profession of ignorance. Another technique used in hypnosis, which if you introduce a command using a negative statement, I don't know, I can't say, I'm not sure if you really want to buy this.
So all of these statements, so it's like way how people hypnose us?
Exactly. So they're all different packaging in which you can insert your commands and suggestions. The command of paying attention and watching the video, the command of going to the website and buying, and the suggestion of, for example, it's time to do this. This is the right time is a suggestion. Or, for example, in dating, what you can do is say, I don't know if you feel ready now, or you can do it through a story, for example. Let me think about a story that is used in dating. You can ask her like, what's your favorite vacation spot? Any place that you want to go on vacation to?
Maldives.
Maldives, right. Why Maldives though? Like
the blue ocean.
Blue ocean, yeah.
Warm and luxury place.
Okay, what's interesting is that when I asked you the question, your eyes looked on the top right.
Yeah.
So you went like this.
Yeah.
Why is that? Because your mind is basically accessing information in different folders within it. And the way that the eyes move is basically accessing different folders as if they are on a desktop computer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something also cool. But yeah, and then you can say something, oh yeah, my favorite vacation spot, for example, is the Caribbean islands.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know just how clearly you can picture this. You know, the white sand is soft underneath your feet, like the sugar powder on a donut. And this softness and warmth just envelops you. And you see the ocean, and the water is shimmering, and there are all the colors, the blue, the seaside green, and then you want to take a step in. You know, it looks so inviting, you want to step in. But at the beginning you feel scared, right? Because maybe it's too cold, you don't know if you're going to feel good inside the water, but eventually it just looks so inviting, you want to step in. So that was a short example. What did I do? So through the story, I embedded different commands and symbolism, which relates back to me creating trust with you. Because what did I say? First of all, I use a very vivid communication. First of all, I give you a command. So I don't know if you can picture this. I don't know, false profession of ignorance, if you can picture this now. And then you use a very vivid description which engages somebody emotionally. And it's not just, oh, I went on vacation, the food was great. That's how people speak normally. And that's boring, and that's not engaging. I don't know if you can imagine stepping your foot inside the warm sand, like the sugar powder on a donut. That's a very vivid image in your mind.
Yeah.
Because your mind thinks through images, right? And then I embedded different suggestions and commands, such as stepping in, and while you deliver something like that, you would, for example, point at yourself, which the subconscious picks up on and connects the idea of stepping in or taking action or going down to, you know, doing something with yourself, right? That was like a quick example of how you can embed different suggestions and commands through a story. And that's how hypnosis work and how you can apply this principle through your advertising and marketing through your storytelling.
What do you think is the most dangerous things about marketing psychology in that case?
The most dangerous thing is that you can apply all these principles unethically. That's, for example, what con artists or cult leaders do. For example, what narcissists do. They overload you at the beginning of a relationship with a lot of positive emotions, which triggers the neurochemicals such as endorphin, dopamine, and they are super present, super attentive. They give you all their love and their adoration. And then once you're hooked on that emotion and that drip of chemicals in your brain, what they do is they distance themselves. They begin to act cold. They begin to gaslight you. Mm-hmm. And so they fractionate your attention and your consciousness between two extreme states, which then make you addicted, because how dopamine is released in the brain is not through the actual experience of a positive feeling, but by the expectation of that positive feeling. For example, cocaine addiction. Somebody who is addicted on cocaine gets the highest emotional reward and the highest spike in dopamine when he's thinking about having a line. So for example, he's hanging out with his friend on a Saturday night, and then suddenly he has this thought, oh, what if I have a line of cocaine, And now his unconscious mind is gonna bring up all the positive association from the last experience that he had doing cocaine, all the, hanging out with their friends, the jokes, the music, the high energy. And now it's gonna create a loop that builds upon itself of expectations of what that experience will look like. And that expectation will create dopamine. But the crazy thing is that eventually the more you use cocaine, the less you feel the effect. I'm not a cocaine user, it's just what I learned so far. The more you use it, the less you feel the effect. But what you get hooked on is on the dopamine release when you expect to do it, right? Same thing goes for dating. The way that narcissists make women fall in love with them, even if they're very intelligent women that would never say to themselves, yeah, I'm gonna fall for a narcissist. Of course they do. It's just because unconsciously the narcissist is gonna try to take control of your nervous system, because themselves, they have an unregulated nervous system. They cannot control their emotions. And so subconsciously they want to control somebody else's emotion and be very manipulative. So what they do is they move you from an extreme state of love and adoration to an extreme coldness and separation, and they act distant, even, as if they hate you. And then they move you back to the state of extreme love, right? So they fractionate your attention and your consciousness between these two states. And that basically creates addiction within your brain, because it's training your neurochemistry to release dopamine, and you're addicted to dopamine. You're addicted to the idea of, okay, now he's acting bad, but what if he loves me again like he used to, right?
Emotional roller coaster.
Exactly, a roller coaster. And that what makes you addicted. That's also how, for example, TV series make you addicted to a roller coaster of emotion. And the more you can engage somebody emotionally, not just with superficial stuff, but engaging the part of the mind who likes to daydream, the more you can make somebody pay attention and trust you, and then eventually do what you say. So you can use all these things, all these persuasion techniques in a good way or in a bad way.
Do you believe that all people are easy target?
There was an experiment which has been repeated 100 times. It's called the Milgram experiment. It was done at Stanford and a bunch of other universities. And they proved through this experiment that every single human being can be led to kill somebody. So the experiment, there was a doctor who was doing something on a patient, and the people who participated in the experiment had to push a button of how much electrical shock the patient was getting. And just through the authority of the doctor and the framing around the experiment, the fact that it was an experiment, all the participants who were unaware that it was staged and the electrical shock wasn't actually real, but all the participants were led to push the button up to 220 volts, which is deadly for a human, just because of the authority of the doctor who ran the experiment and the whole setup of the thing. And that's crazy because think about the Nazi Germany back in the 1940s. What did all the Nazi officials say during eventually after the regime fell and they were put on court? They saw, well, I was just following orders. And so this guy who ran the Milgram experiment had his parent die in the Holocaust, and he wanted to figure out if that was actually true, if they were just following orders. And he figured out that, through authority and through the right framing, the right suggestion and commands, you can lead anybody to do pretty much anything, even kill somebody.
Now let's try do very simple stuff. So I will ask a question and you will answer, but 2-3 sentences.
Yeah.
Okay? So tell me a moment when you realized, whoa, I can control attention of the people.
When I first made my first sale online, I was ecstatic. I think that was the key for me, which broke my worldview. I can actually make an ad that somebody else on the other part of the world sees and actually gives me money in exchange of my product that is offering value to them. That was the key moment. And then also applying what I learned in dating was actually mind-blowing to me, because I discovered I can take a woman out first time I'm meeting her, and in 2 hours I can do whatever. You can already imagine after 2 hours what happens.
No, come on. Okay. Tell me in simple word, very, very simple, hypnosis in marketing.
Hypnosis in marketing is about engaging the subconscious mind through a story, a compelling narrative, which makes somebody go in a state of willing suspension of disbelief, which means their conscious filters of skepticism drop, and you can communicate way deeper to the subconscious and imprint your messaging, your sales argument to them in a way where they are much more convinced of taking the actions that you're suggesting, such as watching your video or buying your product.
Do you have any example on very famous brand which use this hypnosis technique?
Every single ad that you see on social media is trying to engage you emotionally, and is trying to get you in a state of trance. Everybody who communicates is always actually persuading, and everybody who communicates is trying to engage the mind in the most powerful way possible. Some people just don't know how to do it at a high level.
If you had 10 seconds to warn people, how do they know they are being hypnotized by ads?
If you realize that you're watching something and then you snap back into reality and you think, well, what the fuck did I watch for the last 20 minutes? Then you were hypnotized. Whether it's a Netflix show or you're scrolling through Instagram and suddenly you realize 2 hours passed, you were hypnotized basically.
Maybe you can say some words which will be for us red flags.
There are not really words, because what allows your mind to fall into a state of trance where you forget everything about the world around you, and you're fully focused in the present moment, is mostly something that relates to you. So if somebody speaks deeply to my worldview and to the problems that I have, then trust is created. And then with trust comes attention, and with attention comes, focus, and then eventually paying somebody money.
So what is the simplest way to sell without pressure but still be persuasive?
Stories. Stories are the most powerful way to sell something. Anything can be sold through a story, which can be a customer testimonial or your own experience as a founder, the story through which you created your product. Maybe you went through a certain set of struggles and challenges that inspires people. People love to hear stories, because back 10,000 years ago, the way that we would learn inside a tribe how to survive in the world was sit in front of a fire in a circle and let the elderly people in the tribe tell us about their life experience and the stories that they had to help us young guys understand how the world works. What things should we avoid? Should we avoid going in that forest which has very dangerous animals? How should we relate to women? So stories are the most powerful way to sell, and they will always be.
What is the biggest marketing lie which even smart people believe?
I think that's endorsement. So if somebody endorses a product, they're putting the reputation on it, but it doesn't really mean that if you trust that person, then the product itself is trustworthy. But it's the biggest hijack of the mind to take somebody who your audience already trusts and allow them to introduce your product to the audience. So that's the biggest hack that can be used in a positive way or also in a negative way.
What's one thing you did for sales in the past, but you would never do it again?
I would never sell something that I would not be comfortable recommending to my mother or my sister. That is my only...
Your relative.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. What is the most dangerous part of marketing, like psychology of marketing, the part which can harm people?
Yeah. So I would make a distinction between persuasion and manipulation. So what manipulation is what changes is the intention, right, behind the two. So if I'm trying to persuade you, I'm just as a way of assigning meaning to these two words, I'm doing it with a good intention of moving your idea in a positive way or allowing you to see my idea and my worldview. While manipulation uses coercion, force, concealing the truth, manipulating the facts, which have negative intention, of course, because I'm trying to convince you of something, because I'm trying to convince you of something that is false. Therefore, I am doing it with a bad intention.
Can you give me example of good selling ads or products and explain why they sell?
Anything can be sold to anyone. And the biggest lie that entrepreneurs believe is that competition is harmful. Because actually competition doesn't really matter. And I'd rather sell something in a niche or in a product category where there are brands, companies already doing hundreds of millions, even billions of dollars, than to sell something which is new, which is not proven to be exchanged for money by people. So I'd rather sell something in one of the big niches, which is health, wealth, and relationships. Basically, every product can be categorized in one of those niches. Health is any kind of supplement, any kind of fitness, coaching, gym, diet program, anything that improves your body, your lifestyle. While wealth is anything that has to do with money. So even your education, your school, your degree are below the wealth category, or any kind of business opportunity, or any kind of financial investment, real estate, crypto, hedge funds. These are all under the wealth niche. And then there is a relationship. So we want to mate. So anything that has to do with connecting with somebody else, which can be, better clothing, perfumes, can be watches, jewelry. Mm-hmm. These are all things that people buy to get attention and to eventually mate at the core of it, even if they don't consciously tell it to themselves.
Okay, and in the end, tell me please, let's say, tell if you have opportunity to say something, someone like you, some advice, what would you advise?
Yeah, to anyone who is interested in having a successful life. Now, coming from a 22 years old, it's a bit of a cliche because I believe the more I study the word, the more I realize that I know nothing about the word, as Socrates said. But the thing I would say is obsess over education. Set a certain budget each month for buying books, courses, mentorships, and spend as much as possible to accumulate as many information as possible. Because as we said at the beginning, entrepreneurship and business is just two things. Brokerage of talent, so having people operate for you, and arbitrage of information, which is acting and taking decisions based on the best information. And the best informations are hidden. So otherwise, everybody would be successful. So grow your network, connect with successful entrepreneurs, and keep being a student of human nature. Never feel bad because the world does not operate in the way that you would like it to operate. See reality for what it is, even if sometimes it's bad, it's broken, it's depressing. But act according to the rules of the game and study as much as possible. Never stop learning.
Okay. Thank you, Dario, for coming. And thank you, guys. See you on the next episode of Pro Business Talk. Subscribe and bye.